Today on Politics Unplugged, the president threatens the Insurrection Act in Minneapolis and possible military strikes in Iran. We talk to Arizona Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari. Plus, state lawmakers clock back into work after Governor Katie Hobbs kicked off another legislative session with her State of the State address. The panel breaks it all down now on Politics Unplugged.
Good evening. I'm political editor Dennis Welch. This is Politics Unplugged, and the president is threatening to use the Insurrection Act to justify sending troops into Minneapolis. I talked about that and the escalating situation in Iran with Arizona Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari. Hey, thank you very much for joining us here today, Congresswoman. I know you're very busy. We are pressed for time, but we do want to talk to you a little bit about a lot of things happening in the world today, and I do want to get your reaction from this morning as we were taping that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act to calm the protests we're seeing in Minneapolis. And for people who aren't familiar with that act, it allows the president to send the military into American cities or federalize the National Guard. Just your reaction.
This is deeply alarming, Dennis. I put out a statement on this earlier today. I think, it's very clear that Donald Trump and his administration are continuing to attempt to sow chaos and confusion in Minnesota. After the killing of Renee Nicole Good by an ICE agent last week, they have only sent more ICE agents to Minneapolis, causing further disturbances. Nobody wants the Insurrection Act. Nobody wants military or troops in their cities. And that is made abundantly clear, not just by the American people, but by the governors of these states. So very much hope that the president will rethink such an authoritarian-like decision.
And obviously, Democrats, are in the minority in Congress. Is there anything you feel that you can do right now to prevent him from doing this? Are you getting buy-in from other Republicans who are expressing concern about this and that will work with Democrats to stop him at this point?
We're hearing a lot from Republicans about their concern about how Donald Trump has been acting in recent weeks, whether it be the illegal, actions in Venezuela to the nonstop talk of going to war with Europe over Greenland. There are Republicans who are outraged about that. I think the chaos in the streets and the recent data about how Americans are viewing ICE and how they're viewing immigration enforcement by the Trump administration continues to be damning for the president. Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota also put out a very heartfelt and sincere plea to the president today, asking him to please try to calm the tensions in Minnesota, because this is not benefiting anyone. This is not making anybody safer. And it is far past time for us to choose some civility over the chaos that is being, exacerbated on our streets.
Now, it wasn't long ago that you were a member of the Phoenix City Council. There's been some reporting suggesting that ICE could be targeting Phoenix next for its ramped up immigration operations here. Anything you think the city should be doing to prepare for something like that, or anything that you could do in Congress in light of what we're hearing there?
Well, we have been preparing for ramp up of ICE in Phoenix since the moment Donald Trump was reelected, quite frankly. And ICE has been operating in Phoenix. They have been causing a lot of fear. They arrested a DACA recipient on Christmas Eve who was doing her Christmas shopping. They've taken constituents of mine who were green card holders in ICE detention centers. But we've been in touch with local elected officials. I think at the city level, it's important for the police department to focus on keeping our community safe and focus on violent crime and not cooperate with ICE, which has been the case in Phoenix. I think other cities around the valley should ensure that they don't have agreements with ICE. We're also planning to soon convene local elected officials just to make sure our community is prepared. We're continuing to ramp up Know Your Rights trainings in our district to make sure that everyone, no matter their immigration status, knows what their constitutional rights are, because what is deeply disturbing about the way ICE operates, how this rogue agency has been operating, is that there's been a lot of racial profiling. Native Americans have been targeted. People have been targeted simply for speaking Spanish or another language, or for the color of their skin. And, that's why this issue is so important. I'm actually heading to Minnesota tomorrow for a field hearing, because what's happening to Minnesota, in Minnesota, is affecting all of us, and Phoenix especially knows this better than anyone.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that even though a lot of the attention right now is in what's happening in Minneapolis, this is still going on. ICE is still rounding up people in cities all across America. Now, we just heard Kyrsten, the head of Department of Homeland Security, say that Americans should be prepared to prove their citizenship if they're stopped on the streets. Do you have any recommendations, any words of advice on the public tonight, how they should handle situations and prepare for that contingency?
This is why I've signed on to the articles of impeachment for Kyrsten Sinema. She is just terrorizing Americans and the civilian population in this country. What she has advised people to do is actually what many people in my district have already been doing, because they are so scared. People who are U.S. citizens in this country, who have been in this country for decades, have felt the need to carry a passport on them over the last year, because they're so terrified of what this administration might do. I've been part of hearings here in Congress where we heard directly from U.S. citizens who were assaulted by ICE, who were detained by ICE wrongfully. This is unacceptable. This has to be reined in. I really implore my Republican colleagues in Arizona to recognize this and speak out against this, speak out against the Trump administration's policies, because this is hurting Arizona families. Our state is very impacted. We are a community of immigrants that benefits from immigration, and this is really not what Arizona stands for.
Yeah, community of immigrants. That's a nice transition. I want to talk a little bit about Iran. And I know this is an issue near and dear to you and your family. For people not familiar with your family history, your parents fled the regime there, and I want to get your take about what is happening over there, and how do you think the president is currently handling the situation there? You have protesters in the streets in Iran demanding change, and you have a president right now trying to deal with this situation. How do you think he's handling it, and what's your big takeaway from this moment?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's been heart-wrenching to watch. The people of Iran are vehemently opposed to the Islamic Republic regime that has held the country hostage for 47 years. The protests that we saw over the course of the last 2 weeks or so represent some of the largest protests in the last 47 years. Folks have called it a revolution. People are demanding the end of the Islamic Republic regime that has tortured, murdered so many people. The economy is in shambles. Human rights are constantly attacked. Thousands of people have reportedly been killed by the regime as well. I am leading a bipartisan resolution right now in Congress that calls for standing with the Iranian people, condemning the brutality of the regime. And look, here's what I'll say about the president. He made statements in support of protesters. As he does, he conducts his foreign policy via social media. He made bold statements such as, quote unquote, help is on the way, to directly appealing to Iranian protesters. And then, has done nothing tangible to actually support Iranian people. I don't support the U.S. engaging in military action that could harm Americans or get us in another war. But there are actions that the administration could take immediately when it comes to internet freedom in Iran, when it comes to, they did announce targeted sanctions against regime officials today, which is good news. But there's also several thousand Iranian asylum seekers right now in detention centers across the United States. And there have been 2 deportation flights where they've sent asylum seekers back to their oppressors in Iran who would be murdered immediately. Something tangible that the president could do is not allow any more deportation flights and make sure that asylum seekers who are seeking refuge here in the United States because they would be persecuted for their religion or for their ethnic minority in Iran, he could prevent that. So, I think anything that we can do to support the Iranian people in their quest for freedom is a good thing, but also, wary of putting people in harm's way if it's just words.
All right, Congresswoman, unfortunately, we don't have any more time. I would love to ask a few more questions and talk to you a little bit more about what is happening there. But again, we're out of time right now. Thank you for stopping by here, and we'll talk to you the next time.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
And I'm bringing in our panel to talk about all of this week's major headlines, including the governor's State of the State address. That's next on Politics Unplugged.
State lawmakers clock back into work. Arizona's senior senator sues the Pentagon, and Donald Trump threatens to send troops to the Twin Cities. This is your political roundup. Governor Hobbs kicked off the 2026 legislative session with her State of the State address. That was about two things: lowering the cost of living and making her case for re-election. Just before the governor took center stage, it was democracy, slightly off key. Protesters outside busted out their brass horns and whistles to drown out a pro-ICE rally attended by key GOP officials. Meanwhile, talk of taking over Greenland and possible military action in Iran dominated the conversation in our nation's capital. And finally, President Trump threatened to use the Insurrection Act to send troops into Minneapolis to try to silence the anti-ICE protests in the city. And that was your political roundup for the week.
And here to talk about all of that is Republican consultant Marcus Dell'Artino and Democrat Matt Grodsky. Thanks for being here. Let's start with the State of the State address. Marcus, you've been a connoisseur of these states. State of the State speeches now for years, as long as I have been watching these. Top takeaways from this one.
Well, first of all, watching the political roundup, thank God nothing happened this week, huh?
Boring.
So here's the thing that you got to put it in context of: Democrat governor in a state that's got a Republican voter majority, and it's campaign year. I think she did a very smart speech. She hit some politically popular issues that are so popular, in fact, Republicans agree with her. And particularly, and I know it's not sexy, but data centers, and she took a swipe at data centers. And I will tell you, the residents of Arizona are very frustrated. You're watching it in Tucson and throughout Maricopa County. And so I thought that was a smart move. And then she went after Airbnbs. And I think that was a smart move. No offense to my friends in the Airbnb business, but, residents are frustrated about these issues. And so you see her sort of trying to hit on some of these populist moments, which is smart when you're trying to reach independent voters.
Yeah, and let's get your perspective on this. You're the Democrat here at the table. You're in the political game. You're the political consultant, stuff like that. You're looking at this speech. How do you think she did politically?
Oh, I think Marcus brings up a great point. She's reading the mood of the electorate, and I think she performed incredibly well in this speech. I think affordability was the main takeaway. I mean, I think there was a headline this week about how unemployment in the state has gone up, as high as it was during COVID. Obviously, the premiums have spiked significantly. So I think she's tapping into that, and I would expect to see more of that messaging as we get closer to November, which I know
Did she go far enough on this? I mean, because as Marcus was saying, I think everybody agrees housing is a big, huge, humongous issue in Arizona. You've got the President of the United States saying that he's working on plans, is going to do something to try to stop corporations from buying houses.
Yeah.
How come we're not hearing that same kind of rhetoric from this governor?
I think we'll get there. I think she went as far as she needed to in this speech. She's laying the groundwork. She's setting the agenda. We got a long way to go between now and hopefully June when the session is over.
And, I would say Democrats have introduced that bill in the past. It just went nowhere. We're seeing Republicans just introduce that bill this year. I expect something actually to move on that.
I'm starting to see some convergence on this issue, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're saying, as I like to say, the political spectrum isn't a straight line, it's a circle, and we're watching them meet up. The other thing I think that's interesting, and most Arizonans need to know this, is the federal government owes us over $700 million. And that was money that was spent on border security, right? But if the federal government was not to reimburse us, that equates to double taxation for Arizona citizens. And so she doubled down on that, and I think Republicans want that money. If you're a Republican congressman from Arizona, please make a statement. Go get us our $700 million because we're being double taxed.
Speaking of taxes, that's the big fight this week. Republicans, after she kicked off the legislative session, fast-tracked their tax conformity bill. I know usually when you say tax conformity, I have to wake somebody up. It's a very boring issue. It's never really any kind of big issue down at the legislature. It's almost automatically done, but this year is different. Governor's calling for about, $220 million in tax cuts for their conformity package. It's based off the big, beautiful bill. Republicans want a little more than double that. But the governor has already vetoed the Republican proposal. How does this end up?
Well, they're going to hurt our revenue. I think that's the main message. But all she has to do is keep talking about the fact that she wants a tax cut for the middle class. I think the Republicans are struggling, frankly, to message against this. And quite honestly, the broader electorate is not paying attention to what the Republicans said or did this week. They're not following the conformity issue. So I think the ball's in her court, and she's going to have the advantage when it comes to messaging this because she's the governor. She's got the bully pulpit. She says, I want a tax cut. Republicans are struggling.
Are Republicans struggling with this?
No, I respectfully disagree.
Or are they going to turn the table on this and try to accuse the governor of vetoing tax breaks in a year of where affordability is the issue?
Let's talk about what's in the bill. Okay. Because
why would we do that,
Because at some point here, people, it's not what you think, it's what's printed on black and white. And so here's what the Republicans did, is they got rid of those factors that would have benefited the higher wage earners, right? And so that's non-sexy things like SALT provision and accelerated depreciation, of which I won't geek out and talk to you about, but those would generally benefit higher income earners. They doubled down, took that money and plowed it into some of these middle and lower income tax cuts. And so what you have actually is a difference of how much money we are going to spend, not on the higher incomes. This doesn't benefit the rich. And people that say that are focused on the HR 1, not the actual tax conformity bill. The question is whether you're going to double down and give that much more money to the middle and lower
class. But how are they going to explain that? How are they going to message that the way you just did, right? I get the nuance, but in terms of selling it to the broader population, I think that's where the struggle is.
And I think the big question, though, is going to be whether or not the legislature can get this done before Arizona's really start filing their taxes, because that's something I know that both the Republican leadership wants and the governor wants. But unfortunately, we're going to have to take a quick break right here. And right now, is the U.S. really going to invade an ally and send troops into Greenland? That's next on Politics Unplugged. And to get more in-depth on the issues, check out the Politics Unplugged podcast this week. I'm joined by Arizona House Speaker Steve Montenegro. The Politics Unplugged podcast drops every Sunday evening wherever you get your podcast. And let's bring the panel back in. Let's continue this discussion. We were talking about Greenland, and you got an interesting social media ad or something in your feed this morning.
Folks, Denmark is literally on your social media now, and the messaging is something to the effect of, we just don't understand. We were best friends, and we don't understand what's going on because we still want to be best friends with you. It's hilarious if it weren't for the fact of where we are in having this discussion.
Yeah. Is this something popular with the Republicans you talk to?
No, and I think in a larger perspective, this is the problem sort of within the MAGA. MAGA is a movement. Parties have platforms, and our platform defines what your party stands for. MAGA is much more of a fluid, sort of moving situation. But what you're seeing within MAGA, and we certainly see it with Marjorie Taylor Greene, is where those separations happen, right? And Marjorie Taylor Greene, in addition to being involved with breaking the Epstein files, has been upset about foreign involvement in foreign nations. And everybody, I think, in the MAGA movement would have defined it as a party that's much more isolationist.
Yeah, and Matt, what's your take from this? You're looking at this as the Democrat. Do you think this is just posturing from the president, or do you think he really wants to get Greenland one way or the other?
I think he really wants it. I think the trick for us is not to get sucked into a trap on the operation, whether it does or does not happen. I think we got to bring it back to the local level. What is this doing to put money in your pocket? You, the voter, what is this doing to bring down costs? You guys are hurting. What does this do to help you, right? And the Republicans can't answer that, so we got to go out there and put out that juxtaposition. So I think that's our goal for the next few months.
Okay, and let's talk about what's happening in Minneapolis. President, again, threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. That's a very old law. It was made by, men who wore powdered wigs and buckles on their shoes. It hasn't been invoked very often.
Lately it has, but...
But your thoughts on this? I mean, sending the possibility the Insurrection Act would allow the president to federalize the National Guards or send military troops into the streets of an American city.
I don't think it's a winning look, to be quite blunt with you, Dennis. And here's my cautionary tale, is that midterms aren't very far away. And we should start putting together a plan to actually capitalize on the midterms, because American citizens start to get pretty jumpy when they see American troops arresting United States citizens or shooting United States citizens. And so I certainly understand the issue. But there's a better way to go about it, I think, for Republicans.
Okay. I wanted to ask you about the ICE operations in general. We're seeing that ICE itself is becoming more and more unpopular with the public overall. You're even seeing support decline amongst Republicans. I want to ask you specifically, we saw Maricopa County Sheriff Jerry Sheridan, Republican sheriff, say that if ICE does come here, if ICE breaches the peace here, that he is willing to arrest ICE agents in the streets here. And I think your answer is very interesting, because it wasn't long ago you were running a campaign against Jerry Sheridan in 2024.
Yeah, and when I was with the party in 2020, we were running against him too. So yeah, we're in the upside down. When he starts making sense, you got to question some things. But look, he's got the federal government that's doing all the crazy for him. Saying this and then doing it are two very different things. So we'll see how he follows through. But look, if all the pressure we put on him in that time made him moderate a little bit, mission accomplished maybe. So we'll see what happens. But I think the bigger thing is ICE is losing the thread in this conversation, right? Swing voters are turning against him. Immigration's the president's most popular issue, but he's losing the will of the people on this fight. So I think we just got to keep pushing that as we get closer to November.
And the fact that, Joe Arpaio's former right-hand man, former chief deputy Republican, is making a statement like this, it's, remains to be seen whether Sheridan would actually do what he is saying, but the fact he is saying it is significant. Is this a moment in Republican politics here in Arizona?
No, I think we're overestimating it. I mean, Jerry Sheridan's a lifetime lawman. And I think when you talk to lifetime law enforcement personnel, they will tell you, I am here to uphold the law regardless of who it applies to. And that's essentially what he said was, look, if you break the law, I have to arrest you. I don't have a choice. And whether you're with ICE or you're a general citizen. And so I think that is exactly at the heart of his statement.
Fingers crossed.
And also kind of want to talk about another big story this week. It's, seems like Kyrsten Sinema is the politician that we can't let go of, and then she keeps making headlines. She was sued recently in a North Carolina court under an old homewrecker law because she was accused of having an affair that destroyed this woman's marriage. What's the thought there? Because we did find some evidence that this guy was put on her payroll of Senate staff, which gives it its taxpayer angle on this. What's your thoughts on this mess?
It'd be a weird plot to guarding test too, I guess. You know what I mean? But I don't really think, other than it being splashy, that it's super relevant to voters or anybody at this point in time. She's no longer our statewide senator. So I just don't think that it's something that has a lot of staying power. Interesting, but not something I think people are focused on.
Yeah, and your thoughts on that?
I mean, most people were shocked to know that there was a homewrecker law. Number one. Number two is it kind of reminds me of the story of Icarus. When you fly too close to the sun, the wax burns. And she was certainly hot commodity. I mean, she was front and center on that data center out in Chandler. She's raising a significant amount of money for that business roundtable. Unfortunately, I don't know whether the story is true, and I don't know if it's been verified. I will tell you, every Politico I know in town was texting that story yesterday.
Well, and it's also, we'll wrap on this, it's also, you got to reiterate that we're just getting one side of this, a spurned ex-wife on this, and a long way from getting all the facts of that case. We'll have to
talk about it more.
Yeah. Nothing like a woman scoring, huh, Matt?
All right, and that is all the time we have this week. Be sure to join us next week for more Politics Unplugged. Good night.